everything I've done, by and large, has been kind of self-taught. You know, I've taken courses here and there, but for the most part, it's been just that curiosity and that obsession or that love of computers that's kind of taken me. Curtis Wiseman. I work for Cisco, specifically in the security business group. I'm a product manager within the Secure Access team. I've got, essentially, my wife jokes, I've got a bike for every season. So I've got a road bike for the summer, mountain bike for the fall, gravel bike for the spring, and then a fat bike through the winter. It's just getting out and very peaceful, peace of mind, just to kind of unwind, turn the brain off for a little bit. I love to do DIY type, mostly rough construction, like, you know, build a shed, you know, do that sort of stuff. But other than that, it's mostly biking. And, you know, and then when I'm not doing that, I'm also, because I've been in cybersecurity for, gosh, probably close to 20 years, I do a lot of just exploration and research and, you know, how does this protocol work? Or, hey, there was a new exploit, how did that actually work? And so it's a lot of research and playing. I grew up in Nova Scotia, you know, small town in around the New Glasgow area. Yeah, I went to school at Dalhousie in Halifax. I, you know, kind of stayed close to home. It was a city that I always really enjoyed. I love my maritime roots. You know, ended up in New Brunswick. Kind of joke, my dad's from Newfoundland. I was born in Nova Scotia. I moved to New Brunswick. My daughter was born in New Brunswick. So we're on a 20-year migration to British Columbia. You know, I love the Maritimes. It's small. It has all the outdoor things that I enjoy. Because I work in technology, I can work anywhere in the world. You know, folks that I work with from, let's say, the Bay Area, you know, they always say like, well, like Fredericton, you know, why? And I'm like, well, look, it's 75,000 people. It's a small area, but we've got 2 universities that are world-class. We're kind of like this really well-kept secret. And, you know, it's a great place. It's a great place to grow up. It's a great place to raise a family. I was, I'm gonna say, a little better than average student. I wasn't entirely interested in school. I was interested in the things that interested me, but I played a lot of sports. And so it was always that balance of, you know, study enough to do well, definitely not top of the class, but study enough to do well, but, you know, make sure that I had that balance of enjoying myself. It was either, I would say, physics or biology. Probably what I've learned over time is that I like solving problems. And so physics was all about trying to solve a problem, you know, calculations or what have you. And biology was kind of similar in many ways and just in how things work, right? So even in my career today, that's what I apply is solving problems. How does this work? And how does it all fit together? Long way from physics and biology, but, you know, had I realized kind of at the time, I might have entered into my career a little earlier. I had a very odd entry into this job market. So I graduated with a biology degree. I have a major in biology and a minor in psychology. When I was younger, I wanted to be a doctor, like many young kids kind of growing up, wanted to go into the healthcare field. My mom was in the healthcare field. She was a lab tech. The New Brunswick government, when I moved to New Brunswick, they had a program. You could buy a computer, get internet for free for a year, and get I think it was the tax back. And so I did that. I bought my very first computer and I was just obsessed. And then I took kind of that obsession and I just kept learning and learning and learning, and just the curiosity and the drive to know about how it worked and how all the pieces fit together. I started volunteering, working with a small little computer shop, just going in on my days off to learn and to learn more. And eventually they said, you know, you've been doing this for free. Would you like to come work for us and we'll actually pay you to do it? And so I said, yeah, like this was great. And so from there, everything I've done by and large has been kind of self-taught. You know, I've taken courses here and there, but for the most part, it's been just that curiosity and that obsession or that love of computers that's kind of taken me. No real formal training. So I was going through my degree. I was taking biology, and as part of it, to get into medicine, you have to do a lot of extracurricular, right? It's volunteering, it's these sorts of things. And I had already had exposure to kind of the hospital healthcare system because my mom worked in that environment. And so I started volunteering with one of the local hospitals in Halifax, where I went to school. And I very quickly realized that this really wasn't something that drove me. It didn't give me passion. And so I started looking for, is there something that was, I'm going to say, healthcare adjacent, not necessarily medicine, but maybe it was physiotherapy, or maybe it was, and similarly, I worked in a physiotherapy clinic for well over a year while I was going to school, just to get the exposure. And again, still didn't just find that passion. So, I volunteered in a hospital, volunteered with a physio clinic, even looked at a couple of others, like, looking at maybe, lab technician, pharmacy, those types of things, kind of healthcare adjacent, and never found that passion, that kind of drive, that kind of lit that fire, that this is something I want to do for the rest of my life. But once you find that thing, that spark, it changes everything. There's good days and bad days at work, but at the end of the day, I still always love what I do. And that to me was, if you can find that thing that you love, it's just, your passion will take you. And I think I feel very fortunate that I stumbled into it as a career. It's interesting because as a product manager, the part that I love about it is, one or two sentences, the easy answer is, I take customer problems and try and figure out how to solve them with software. And because I'm in security, most of it is about enabling customers to get value securely. Whether they know they want security, or they just know that they want to get to their financial records, but they also know they don't want to lose their financial records. So how do you enable that, and then enable it in a way that's secure and that they feel protected? That's kind of what I do as a product manager. It's continually taking the customer needs, mapping it to how you could deliver that in software for value for the customer, and then ultimately do it in a secure fashion. We would have as customers some of the largest companies. You could quite literally look around your living room and look at some of the brands that you may or may not have, and there's a good chance that one of them are our customers. We have some large customers in manufacturing, in IT, law, legal, finance, you name it. We're a very large company, and we just, because of that, the breadth of the customer base that we have is very equally as broad. I think probably the most obvious one is the whole AI machine learning kind of realm. I think some of the recent applications, everybody has heard of ChatGPT, and now Google is building it in with Bard/Gemini, and Microsoft is building it in with their Copilot. And I think that is incredibly exciting, and it's also incredibly terrifying. We're looking at ways where we can actually use artificial intelligence to inform admins or end users about security problems. Give you a real simple example, real world example of something that we do that's really, really interesting is a lot of corporations are worried about data exfiltration. So it's actually, a bad actor or maybe an insider is trying to smuggle data outside of your organization, and it's data that you don't want to leave. And there's lots of techniques for doing that. One of which is called DNS tunneling. And so, using that as a technique to smuggle data outside of an environment is really hard to catch. But we've actually built, an AI model, deep learning, to actually examine the information that goes across in a DNS request, and based on that, determine that that is most likely DNS tunneling. Somebody is trying to either smuggle data out, or they've been infected with a command and control piece of malware, and that ultimately is trying to communicate out to get its next commands of how it can spread or what have you. And so absolutely fascinating, something that based on the volume of data, you would probably never be able as a human to detect. To give you an example, our DNS resolvers answer 800 billion queries a day. So you go to www.microsoft.com, you make a DNS request, and we answer that with the IP address of the website. And so we do 800 billion of those per day. And so you can imagine as a human, you would never be able to analyze the data that's flowing through in a fashion that would allow you to detect malicious activity. And we do it in real time. It's fascinating. I have a hard time getting my head around 800 billion requests, right? And this is global. I mean, we've got a fleet of 700 plus resolvers worldwide, but still, it's pretty amazing. Lots of opportunity for somebody who has ill intention to use that signal to noise, right? We talk a lot about figuring out the signal to noise ratio of how do I determine what's bad when I've got a sea of things to look at. And I think that's probably one of the most exciting applications of this AI ML that's kind of emerging or evolving, where we can actually help us, people, do their job better because they can just analyze that volume of data much more efficiently than we would ever be able to. Highly recommend, looking at computer science. And I think computer science has really started to evolve beyond just writing code. It's still a key component of it, but there's so many aspects in cybersecurity or even within just general IT itself. But it's one of the few places where you can learn, the scientific principles of breaking a problem down. How do you approach things, build things, analyze it when you're done. There's been lots of folks over the years that I've had either as an intern or fresh graduate that have gone through a science program, computer science or science and computer engineering or what have you, who didn't want to write code all day, but they were grounded in the foundational principles so that they could apply it to a more business-like perspective. The thing that's fascinating about the field that I'm in is that there's so many different facets to it. If gaming is of interest to you, maybe start looking at which aspect of that. Is it in the graphic design portion? Is it in the mathematical models about how things interact? And as you start to explore, I think you'll quickly either become intrigued or decide that that really isn't for me. There's lots of programs. Like we used to work quite a bit when I was with IBM about the Cyber Titans program. And so the Cyber Titans program is a great opportunity for middle school to high school age kids to start to learn a little bit about information security. And information security is as broad as IT is broad. And so, there's a great opportunity for kids to get involved, learn something, and decide maybe that is my passion, or maybe it's not, and they can just kind of continue on exploration. Beyond that, it's really about just being curious, right? And diving into the things that kind of intrigue you, catch your eye. The New Brunswick area and Fredericton in particular, because of there's been a few startups that have had success. Because of that, it's also fostered this really rich startup ecosystem. And so there's a lot of really small companies that are doing tremendous things, research-wise, cutting edge, whether it's in AI, ML, or even in the healthcare space. We really, for a small region, we punch well above our weight. And so from an opportunity perspective, I think it runs the gambit. I don't have a software engineering background, as you know. I have a biology background, but I've worked in IT for 20 plus years, from racking and stacking servers all the way to what I do now. So for somebody that has or wants to go into a career in IT, I would say find the part that you're passionate about, and then go for it.